Yes, your very taxes are being used to feed and water the murderous savages that you're about to meet, who are all doing a forever prison sentence. Enjoy. Eerily enough, before jointly murdering a lady called Quen and Gok Nguyen in August 2017, Stephen Unwin and William McFall had each murdered a pensioner and done time for that. They got Miss Nguyen to come to a property under false pretences, and then Unwin raped her, and then afterwards he drove her to a remote location and set her on fire. He then drove to a cash machine and withdrew money from her bank account while the lady burned. The two men got their whole life order in 2018. Now viewer, if I've got you hooked on the story so far, do subscribe, give the video a like, drop a comment when you're ready and donate. Hit the thanks button below, I'll appreciate you. John Taylor got his first life sentence for a string of xual offences that he committed from 1977 to 1987, and they include some of the most horrendous types of xual offences that there are. Alongside those offences were grievous bodily harm and many, many other offences. He got his second life sentence in June 2002 for the murder of Lian Tianan, and that second life sentence in fact turned into a whole life order imposed on him in 2018. There are numerous videos documenting the life and horrendous crimes of hitman Mark Fellows, who got his whole life order in 2019 after his second murder. He actually worked as a chef, as you know, a day job, and went killing by night, I guess. He also ran marathons, and in fact I think a smartwatch of his or some kind of fitness app was something that helped nail him for the murder of Paul Massey. He was also found guilty of the shooting murder of John Kinsella. This was all up in Liverpool. A Libyan refugee who came to the UK in 2012, 25-year-old Khairi Saadallah had mental health issues, couldn't stay out of prison, admired Islamic terrorists, and on the 20th of June 2020, stabbed to death 3 total strangers in a park in Reading, Berkshire. Why? Because he wanted to please God, Allah to be exact. Even though Saadallah was from a wealthy family back in Libya, a member of his family reports that the man sought to escape the violence that ravaged his home country, the killer having developed PTSD as a result of their civil war. Between 2015 and 2019, over here in the UK, Saadallah gained 6 convictions relating to as many as 15 crimes, 8 of which having been violent crimes. Sending this refugee back to his home country on account of his criminality, however, would have been a breach of his human rights. A cannabis addict who was radicalised in prison and who was briefly on the radar of MI5, the man had regular visits from a mental health professional. In fact, a day or two before he murdered 3 people who were wholly innocent, he spoke to the police about his ongoing therapy sessions, the police having been asked to look into the man's behaviour by none other than the man's brother.
You're feeling a bit down, feeling a bit unwell?
When?
I don't know.
Wait,
No?
Yesterday, yeah.
You were feeling down yesterday. You were supposed to see the crisis team.
I spoke to them, yeah.
You spoke to them. What did you say?
I spoke to them. They say that they're going to bring me back.
They're going to bring you back?
Yeah.
In court, the prosecution described Saadallah's murder of James Furlong, 36, David Wales, 49, and Joe Ritchie Bennett, 39, the 3 men being friends and having all lost their lives in less than a minute at the hands of Saadallah, as, quote, highly effective executions, unquote. They added that as a committed jihadist who, as he killed his 3 victims, was heard to clamour in Arabic, God is great and God accept my jihad. The perpetrator planned the attack with determination and precision, intending to kill as many people as possible. In October 2021, Saadallah was denied permission to appeal his whole life order, which, following his guilty pleas from November 2020, he picked up in his sentencing hearing of January 2021. Wayne Couzens was allowed to appeal his whole life order for the murder that he committed in March 2021. However, in the space of less than 10 seconds, the Court of Appeal dismissed his appeal.
Couzens seeks leave to appeal against sentence. In his case, we grant leave to appeal against sentence but dismiss the appeal.
Wayne Couzens was a Metropolitan Police officer. In March 2021, he did a bogus arrest of a 33-year-old marketing executive called Sarah Everard, stopping her on the street and telling her that as she was out on the street, she was in breach of COVID restrictions and she had to go with him to the police station. What he in fact did was to drive her out of London and all the way down to Kent, grape her and then strangle her to death with his police belt. He then burnt her body in a fridge in some wood. It was in an area of some woodland that he actually owned. When Couzens was arrested, which took place in his very home on the 9th of March 2021, 6 days after he did what he did, he was completely taken by surprise. The man must have known that he was going to get caught. He doesn't seem to have taken into account the presence of CCTV or done anything to protect himself against it. He used his mobile. The data would obviously incriminate him. And keep in mind that this isn't just any old bog standard criminal. This was a police officer, somebody who knows about investigation techniques and so on, so he should have been more clued up on covering his tracks than the average basic bog standard criminal. Then again, we're glad he wasn't. We're glad that he failed to cover his tracks, because thanks to his failure to cover his tracks, he got caught. Anyway, because he wasn't expecting it, or at the very least, he possibly wasn't expecting it quite so soon, he was wholly unprepared. So listen to the joke of the story that he gave the police when he admitted to abducting Sarah. This is his explanation of what he did.
Well, I am in financial shit, and I've been lent on by, I don't know who they are. They're a group, a gang, whatever. And they told me, right, I need to go and pick up girls and give them to them. There's a couple of names. I was told a place to take her. That's it. That is all I know.
There was a subsequent inquiry into the behaviour of Wayne Couzens during his career as a police officer, and it was concluded that there were so many missed opportunities to disrupt and halt the man's offending. He did things like flashing on a number of occasions. He was addicted to extreme pornography and tried to get his colleagues to watch it with him. He had a warning at one point for being excessively violent during an arrest. He went missing at one point. He was in loads and loads of debt. And when that happens, a police officer can be kicked out of the force because having money problems makes them more susceptible to bribery and corruption.
The inquiry has seen evidence that Couzens allegedly committed a very serious sexual assault against a child, barely in her teens, before his policing career even started. Problems of money also predated his career with the police. Couzens had substantial unsecured debt by the time he was arrested for Sarah's murder. At the same time, the Metropolitan Police Service were taking action to recover up to £15,000 that had been paid to him in error, and a year-long mortgage holiday was about to expire that month. It is alleged that on a number of occasions, Couzens tried to show friends and colleagues pornography, including some of a violent and extreme nature. It is further alleged that on at least 2 occasions, he shared unsolicited photographs of his penis with young women, and that he paid female online retailers to masturbate into clothes and send them to him. Since his conviction for Sarah's abduction, rape and murder, Couzens has been convicted of further crimes of indecent exposure, one of which he had already been linked to while a serving police officer.
Couzens got his whole life order in 2021. For many years, David Fuller, who was an electrician in a hospital in Kent, which has since been closed down, got away with the 2 murders that he committed. They were of Wendy Nell, who was 25, and Caroline Pearce, who was 20. He committed those down in Royal Tunbridge, Wales. They were known as the Bedsit murders. He was eventually caught for those murders and given a whole life order, and along with that he was given a sentence of 12 years for the SA of more than 100 female corpses in 2 hospital mortuaries, and he did those offences over a period of 12 years. The judge of Fuller's trial said that Fuller, quote, had no regard for the dignity of the dead, unquote. Fuller's whole life order came in 2021. In October 2020, over a period of 7 days, Anthony Russell murdered 3 people. On the 23rd of October 2020, a lady called Julie Williams, 58, phoned West Midlands Police to report that her son, David Williams, 31, hadn't been seen since the 21st of October. On the 25th of October, West Midlands Police were called by Miss Williams' sister to report that Miss Williams herself, Julie Williams, was now also missing. Police officers forced their way into Miss Williams' house and found her dead on the living room floor. Having killed David Williams, who had been his friend, over a disagreement or something, when the man's mother went to him and asked if he'd seen her son, Russell said no. He then offered to help the woman look for her son, only to kill her as well. Knowing that the police would soon come looking for him, the perpetrator scarpered from his hometown of Coventry in the West Midlands over to Leamington Spa, where he battered and robbed 3 people who I think were all elderly and left them for dead. Then he got chatting to a 31-year-old woman called Nicole McGregor, who at the time was 18 weeks pregnant and addicted to drugs. It was on the promise of drugs that Russell was able to lure Nicole to Parkland and then grape and murder her there. He then repeated the same performance of concerned friend that he had put on with the mother of his first victim, Nicole's boyfriend being the dupe of this second performance of his. The boyfriend not realising that the man helping him look for his girlfriend was the very person who had done away with her. Russell got his whole life order in 2022. Damien Bendall committed his horrendous acts under the influence of drugs. He murdered, first of all, his girlfriend, who was pregnant with his child. Then he murdered her 2 young children. And then he murdered the school friend of one of the children who was staying over. This all took place in the Derbyshire town of Killamarsh in September 2021. He also confessed to the grape of one of the children, a little girl.
I don't know what happened.
Alright, come to me. Mate, have you got anything on you that you shouldn't have?
No, there's no weapons or nothing.
Right.
Right, do you just want them to do your coat? Have you armed yourself?
Yeah.
You have?
Have you stabbed yourself, mate?
I can see blood on your hands.
Yeah.
Anywhere else?
Just my chest, 4 inches in with a bread knife.
Can we have a look?
Yeah, and one on the stomach. I bled quite.
Right, do you want?
Yeah. Can we go down this?
No, just stay there.
I just don't want to be in front of everyone.
Alright, just go on the corner.
Just walking wounded at the minute.
Alright, stand here. Stay here.
Right.
So,
We told you, I know what's going to happen to you now, mate.
Well, I know it's going to happen
just
when you go to prison, obviously, but again.
Why, what have you done? Have you done something to anyone else?
Yeah.
What have you done?
I've murdered 4 people.
07:47 hours. I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. Do not mention when questioned something you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Your arrest is necessary to protect you from harm, to prevent your disappearance, for a prompt and effective investigation. Okay? We're going to get you up, we're going to put you in the back of the van.
Recently, he's been involved in some kind of violence at the prison that he is being held in. It was over some workshop equipment, some, really harmful equipment, and he attacked someone with it. When I heard about that on TikTok, I looked at the comments of the TikTok and everyone was saying the same thing. Why are you letting somebody who killed 4 people, including 3 children, anywhere near workshop tools that can cause harm or death to others? Bendall got his whole life order in 2022. Harbi Ali is an Islamic terrorist. In October 2021, he murdered Conservative MP Sir David Amis. He stabbed him more than 20 times while attending a constituency surgery. Ali pleaded not guilty to murder, but then didn't dispute much of the evidence against him in court. He had also plotted to murder other MPs, all in revenge against those, including Amy's, who had voted for airstrikes against Syria. He got his whole life order in 2022. It almost feels as if there was literally no crime that Hakeem Kigundu didn't commit. He was an illegal immigrant. He was given an eviction notice due to his persistent antisocial behaviour, and that notice triggered him to set fire to the block of flats where he lived, which was in Reading in Berkshire. The fire claimed 2 lives, that of Richard Burgess and that of Neil Morris. It also seriously injured 2 others. The man got a whole life order in 2022. I don't know how the police missed in their initial pat-down of Louis de Zoysa, which they performed when they arrested him on the 25th of September 2020, the gun that he had on him. With that gun, in the police station down in Croydon, the man shot and killed Sergeant Matt Ratana.
Stand up, mate.
He's been a bit...
Go on.
I
think this is very
I understand, stand up.
So please leave.
What?
Can you please leave? I think I'm going to pass on.
Okay, listen to me. My name's Matt, I'm the custody officer, right? I'm in charge. I'm not involved in the investigation. You've been arrested on suspicion of possession of bullets, ammunition and possession of intent to supply.
Class B.
Class B, anything else?
That's it.
Alright, your detention's not been authorised yet, but I can authorise a search of you under section 54 of PACE. Stand up. Mate, you're good enough to...
Matt, you alright?
I want to take them!
Matt.
Right,
I'll blow it! Matt.
stop it.
With the 4 shots that he fired from what was in fact the antique gun that he'd managed to retain on his person, he hit Sergeant Ratana in the chest and leg. He got his whole life order in 2023.
This was a cruel, calculated and cynical campaign of child murder involving the smallest and most vulnerable of children, knowing that your actions were causing significant physical suffering and would cause untold mental suffering.
For murdering 7 newborn babies and attempting to murder a further 8, former neonatal nurse Lucy Letby is doing a record 15 whole life prison sentences. Everyone always talks about how normal Lucy Letby seemed to everyone. She had a good circle of friends, a great social life, went on holidays with her colleagues at work. People liked her well enough. She had a bit of a fling with a married doctor. She worked at the Countess of Chester Hospital and she murdered babies and attempted to murder them by injecting insulin and air into their bloodstream. Lucy Letby's murder trial lasted nearly a year. It finished in summer 2023 and Letby got 14 whole life orders. The following year, she got her 15th whole life order following a retrial of one of the murder charges, or it was either a murder charge or a charge of attempted murder. Either way, she was convicted. There are lots of people who say that Lucy Letby is a scapegoat. The deaths of those newborn babies, who I think were all premature, were due to clinical errors of other people. She keeps appealing. Her story, I think, will continue to unravel for many years to come. Lawrence Bierton, who was born in 1959, is a triple murderer. On the 25th of June 1995, 79-year-old Aileen Duddill and her 72-year-old sister Elsie Gregory discovered their gardeners, Lawrence Bierton and Michael Pluck, stealing from them. Bierton and Pluck reacted by bludgeoning and suffocating the sisters to death. They then piled the sisters' living room furniture over the bodies of their victims and set everything on fire. Both men were jailed for life at Sheffield Crown Court in 1996. In February 2012, Pluck died in prison. Bierton, however, was released from prison on licence in 2017. He was recalled to prison in 2018 but released on licence once again in 2020. On the 9th of November 2021 in Worksop, Nottinghamshire, Bierton battered his 73-year-old neighbour, Pauline Quinn, to death with her own coffee table. The cause of death was traumatic head injuries. Bierton's abuse of drug and alcohol was considered by the prosecution to be a contributing factor to the man's acts. Bierton got his whole life order in 2023.
Right, start the same thing at the moment. For the me army defence, the mentoring questions, substituting anything you do, same with evidence. Anything you say now is evidential, alright?
Brian Whitelock, who comes from Swansea in Wales, is another triple murderer. His first two victims were Nicky Morgan and Glenn Whitelock. Glenn was his own brother. He killed them in the course of a drink and drugs party over at the home of Nicky Morgan. When he got out, he then was befriended by a lady called Wendy Buckney. She was a 71-year-old lady. She loved her horses. She knew about Brian Whitelock's past, but she believed that everyone deserved a second chance. One day, under the influence of drink and drugs again, just like in the case of his first two murders, he went over to Wendy Buckney's home, battered her, did something xual against her, and then after he finished battering her to death with all kinds of things, including some shelving, he loaded a pile of furniture and things over her body and walked away. He got his whole life prison order in 2024.
Stand by. You're under arrest on suspicion of murder. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. Do not mention any questions.
In November 2024, double murderer Marcus Osborne lost his appeal to have his whole life order overturned. Osborne killed his former girlfriend and her new partner in 2023 in the month of May in Huddersfield out of sexual jealousy. His ex-girlfriend, a lady called Katie Heighton, who was 27, sustained all of 99 injuries in the attack from Osborne, while her new boyfriend, a guy called Mr. Harnett, was mutilated and left with 24 knife wounds. Osborne also raped another woman who he had held captive in the house. Osborne got his whole life order in early 2024. Stephen Sansom is a double murderer. His first murder came in Christmas 1998, where he killed a taxi driver just for a few quid. He rammed a kitchen knife, I think, into the guy's neck, and then he destroyed the man's mobile phone to make sure that he couldn't call for help. Then he got out, and for a year or two he was fine, didn't get into any trouble, but he kept taking drugs. He got involved with a woman called Gemma Watts, and she was just as bad as him. She liked to BDSM. She used to let Sansom beat the CRAP out of her, and between the two of them they plotted that they would get a woman to come over and hack her to bits or kill her in some way. So then one day they got an ex-girlfriend, or somebody at least that Sansom had dated for a while, by the name of Sarah Mayhew, who in fact was the one who introduced Gemma to Sansom. It's not known exactly what they did to her to cause her death, because when several weeks later her body was found, it was all in pieces and it was very badly decomposed, so it was impossible to trace exactly what had been done to her. Gemma got 30 years for Sarah Mayhew's murder because that was her first murder. In the case of Sansom, however, it was his second murder which led him to getting a whole life order. That came in early 2025.
The evidence I have heard shows you to be a jealous man, soaked in self-pity, a man who holds women in utter contempt.
That's putting it mildly, Mr. Justice Benethan. This is the judge who sentenced Kyle Clifford for the 3 horrendous murders that he committed on the 9th of July 2024, his sentencing having come in March 2025. This triple killer is going to cost the taxpayer millions because he's paralysed. That means in prison he needs lots of extra care. He paralysed himself in a failed suicide attempt that he made just before he got arrested for the murder of his ex-girlfriend Louise Hunt, her mother Carol, and another sister in the family, Hannah. He committed those murders in the home of his ex-girlfriend on the 9th of July 2024. In addition, he raped Louise and held her captive for 2 hours before murdering her, and the judge of his trial said it must have become obvious to Louise in the course of her captivity that Clifford had already killed her mother.
This is no occasion to subject the family and friends of your victims to any delay or suspense. I therefore make clear at once that for each of these 3 murders, the sentence will be one of life imprisonment with a whole life order. That means a sentence from which you will never be released.
And let me clarify that at the time of his sentencing, Clifford was in his 20s. If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.